Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Wholeness Campaign Podcast. This is Selena and Eric here, and today we're going to talk about the differences between empathy and sympathy. We kind of touched on this last week. It's going to be a little bit of a piggyback on the idea of narcissism as it relates to healing, but we want to just kind of dive a little deeper into this topic because I think it's super important and really knowing how you can empathize with people who are going through some kind of sickness in their body or have been experiencing chronic illness for long periods of time is a really important skill to learn. And I find that in our culture, we tend to just sympathize with people who are experiencing pain, and that isn't really getting the deeper needs met. And so I want to kind of unpack both of those. What are the differences? When is it really appropriate to give empathy versus sympathy? And really just like, I think at the end of the day, sympathy keeps people sick because it keeps, if they are operating in any kind of covert narcissism, or what's really beneath that is just pain, like pain where the sickness is working to get a need, an emotional need met, then sympathy is going to keep them in this recurring pattern. And so knowing how you can partner with the people in your life who are experiencing pain and sickness, really of any kind, is a really good skill to learn to help them learn how to be powerful, for you to be powerful, and to ultimately be responding in a way that's truly loving, because I think love is a thing that actually heals. So
Yeah.
let's jump in. Eric, do you want to just start off by, we found a really interesting article when we were doing a little research on this, like what you believe is the difference between empathy and sympathy?
Yeah. Can I read a quote?
Yes, go for it.
So, this is a quote by Brene Brown, who, do you know Brene Brown?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think she's cool.
Yeah.
She has this like viral, uh, what is it? Like a YouTube video about vulnerability. So she's
Okay.
big on
Yeah.
vulnerability. But she describes sympathy as a way to stay out of touch with our own emotions and make our connections transactional. Sympathy puts the person struggling in a place of judgment more than understanding. A lot of times it could be like, sometimes sympathy puts kind of yourself above that person, like
Right.
they're not as capable of you, whatever it may be, like they're less than you maybe, which is not true. A person seeks to make sense of a situation or look at it from their own perspective. Whereas empathy is a lot more, it's defined as the feeling that you understand and share another person's experience and emotions, or the ability to share someone else's feelings. So, empathy is like putting yourself in their perspective, in their shoes, really seeking to understand. Where sympathy, a lot of times, is actually rooted more in judgment, which is
Yeah,
very
isn't that
interesting.
funny?
Yeah.
And it's never, I feel like it's never the intention of the person to be coming across as judgmental, but that ultimately is what's happening. Can you give an example of like that kind of judgmental sympathy? Like, what do you feel like
Yeah.
would be something you hear a lot?
I like this. It also says this. It says when a person is sympathetic, they may give helpful advice or look upon someone with pity. They often feel relieved that they are not in the same struggle. So it could be like, um,
Yeah,
oh,
that's convicting.
whew, that's really
They
that
feel
sucks.
relief that you're
You know,
not in
it's
the same
like
struggle.
they could say
Yeah.
like, oh, that is really hard. That sucks. But that might be as far as they take it.
Yeah.
Is they're not really going. It's kind of like surface level, um, or maybe they're just giving advice without like actually stepping into the mess with them, listening, giving compassion. So maybe it looks like quick to advice or deflection.
Right. kind of like, I don't know if you've ever been in a conversation where it's almost felt like you bring up a problem and it causes like disconnect between you and the person,
Yeah.
but it it's almost like the person kind of like pulls back from you. And I think sometimes this is out of fear, but the verbiage could look like, I don't know, oh, that's really hard.
Yeah.
And maybe even just stopping there instead of getting curious. Um,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just, sometimes those two things, you could say the same things, but you could, like, saying, oh, that's really hard is one thing when you're coming at it from a place of putting yourself in their shoes
Mm-hmm.
versus like, oh, that's really hard, almost in like a slightly condescending way.
Mm.
So I feel like sometimes you can say the same verbiage, but it can actually, the tone of it and the heart posture behind it could be sympathetic or empathetic.
Yeah, I agree actually. It's interesting. I'm reading a lot from this article, but it's really good. It actually says in the article, if you're interested, is psychmc dot it's on psychmc.com.
We'll link it in the description
Yeah, we can
box.
link it. But it even says, this is interesting. It says sometimes sympathy is the appropriate response
Yeah,
when someone you do not know well experiences a loss.
right.
So sometimes if it's someone you don't really know well, maybe a coworker or I don't know, even a stream. Sometimes,
Or social media
yeah,
influencer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes all you really do have to give is more of like a sympathy card. But I guess kind of what we're saying is like for deeper relationships, the goal is to grow in empathy. Where, because I think the thing that keeps people from empathy is they're scared. They're scared, or they don't know how to sit with someone's trigger, or actually like listen to someone's
Yeah.
perspective.
Enter into their pain
Yeah,
without, I think oftentimes it's not having a sense of your own emotional boundaries. Like, can I be with this person while they're
yes,
struggling
yeah,
and still, and me not take on their chaos?
yeah,
Like, I could be completely secure.
yeah,
If I start to feel overwhelmed, I could set a boundary. I could say, hey, I think I need to stop listening right now, or hey, I think I need a break, or hey, I, I really want to give you what you need. Can I come back in a little bit? Like, it's knowing yourself enough there,
yeah.
being able to be be present with the person.
I think you're right. I think that's the thing that keeps me from it at times is I think sympathy feels safer. You're more at like an arm's reach. It is more transactional. And I think sometimes when you step into more of like an empathetic approach, it can trigger things within you
Yeah,
and it can make you feel really uncomfortable, especially if it's like a spouse or a family member
yeah,
or a child,
right,
because then it's so tempting, I think, to, it's so tempting to think of how what they're saying, what is it saying about me?
right,
Especially if what they're sharing is something you did to hurt
yeah,
them.
right,
It's
right,
so tempting to be like, to think how bad you are.
right.
And it's so hard to step out of your own trigger
Yeah,
and meet someone else in theirs.
yeah.
It's so
No,
hard.
I know. And well, I think too
Yeah.
with sympathy, it's usually this feeling of obligation. It's feeling like you can't make a boundary. You are obligated to do things in a certain way. So I don't know, I think of
With
oftentimes
sympathy.
with, yes, with
Yeah.
sympathy, it's like the people on the side of the road who are begging, the
Yeah.
homeless people who are begging. There's actually a way to approach them in empathy,
Yeah.
but most of the time they are warranting sympathy.
Hmm.
Um, and regardless of like what you believe about like people who are begging on the side of the road, um,
Yeah.
sometimes they can be in a place of, like, I've experienced this. Sometimes people are in a place of genuinely needing help and empathy, and sometimes
Yeah.
they are emotionally just trying to get a need met. This is with anybody,
Yeah.
emotionally trying to get a need met, and you giving that perpetual sympathy is actually keeping them stuck in this
Yeah.
pattern or cycle and not believing that they're capable enough to come out of it. That's not the beggar on the side of the road is kind of like a picture of it. But either way, it's like the invitation is to give empathy and ask yourself in that moment, what does the empathy really look like? What am I capable internally,
Mm-hmm.
like, of giving them
Yeah.
that keeps me in a place of actual love?
Yeah.
Um, I also want to just kind of caveat here. I see this a lot of times with influencers, unfortunately, influencers in the chronic health space, where most of their account is warranting sympathy.
Mm.
Um, sometimes it's actually for lack of having that close knit community that can give you that empathy. It's almost like they're using the platform to try to get that need met. But
Yeah.
like you just said in that thing, it's actually like distant relationships can only really give sympathy. That's only
Yeah.
appropriate. Like, it's not really appropriate for me to sit there in a
'Cause you don't really
comment
know
section
them.
and say, "Oh, I could really understand how." Like, it's actually not going to hit because I don't even know them.
Yeah.
So the correct response is, "I'm so sorry that happened to you."
Yeah.
Kind of like a little sympathy.
Mm.
But the problem occurs when, yeah, like, social media gives so much ability for this, where people are just kind of up on these pedestals, never getting their needs met,
Mm-hmm.
um, but constantly warranting sympathy, and kind of keeps them. It can keep people really stuck.
Well, I think it keeps you stuck because if you're only getting sympathy, whether you realize it or not, you're kind of believing this narrative about yourself, potentially that you're just like a victim.
Yeah,
And you kind of want more of that because you want that to be your excuse to stay powerless, to stay where you are, to not fight for
right,
something better,
right,
because it feels scary and challenging and uncomfortable to want to grow, to want to step out of your box. So
right.
sympathy kind of it keeps you in that place
Hmm.
where empathy is actually the thing that can get that need met and then free you to step into the fullness of who you're created to be.
Yeah, empathy is empowering ultimately.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, because it's like, can I actually share a
yeah,
story?
yeah, yeah.
So I don't know, when thinking about this and thinking about a moment where I received empathy, I don't know if I would I don't know if I would have been able to call it that at the moment, but there's this moment that came to mind when thinking about this. And it was when I was 19 years old. And I'm sure I have other moments besides this, but this was a really powerful moment for me.
Yeah.
Um, when I was 19 years old, I got caught drinking and driving,
Hmm.
and I had to go to the police station.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
And
Yeah,
what's up?
I'm remembering the
Oh,
story.
yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's
I had to go
yeah.
to the police station, and I was really scared. I'm 19 years old. I was feeling a lot of shame, scared of judgment, right, from my parents. And I remember getting my dad had to come to get me out. I kind of roughly remember the story, but he had to come to get me out, I think, or something like that. But I remember getting out and then seeing him down the hallway, and then him just didn't even say anything to me. He just embraced me.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know if we walked towards each other, but I just remember him embracing me, and he didn't. So to me in that moment, that was a ton of empathy
Yeah.
because I don't. The thing I needed the most was just someone to embrace me and love me in the mess.
Right.
You know, he didn't. He didn't He didn't act like I was a victim of it, right? He didn't say, "Oh, I'm so sorry that happened." I wasn't. I chose to do that, so
Right.
like I was reaping the consequences of that decision. But he also didn't jump to just giving me advice right away and just like scolding me. The first thing he did was just embrace me, and I, without even words, I felt exuding from him, like
Wow.
he was with literally like the definition, like we literally stepped into that moment, the pain with
Yeah.
me, and just physically embraced me.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I don't know, man. It's like,
Yeah.
I think my dad in a lot of ways has actually modeled, I feel like he's modeled empathy pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a skill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the time that's coming to my mind, we probably will do a whole podcast episode on the birth of Ben, but
The birth of Ben.
the birth of Ben, our little one, he's 10 months old now. But I remember we ended up going to a hospital after he was born. He was born at home, and then we went to a hospital. Had a lot of crazy experiences in the hospital. Probably, we learned a lot about the medical system, which we kind of knew before, but it's different when you experience it. Um, Experienced a lot of narcissism. Actually, I remember that one nurse telling me that
Oh,
particular. Do you remember she said that there was a particular doctor who was acting a certain unkind way, and she actually was like, "Oh, everybody on the ward knows he's a narcissist."
yeah, I remember that.
And I kind of forgot about this, but then I remember when the nurses switched and the the that nurse that kind of exposed that came on after 2 rounds of nurses that were, I mean, literally like the most condescending, terrible. Like I had just had terrible experiences with them. Um, they just really needed things to be done a certain way. I This one nurse came on shift, and she just started with so much empathy, and she basically started sharing her own story.
Mm.
And the thing that I felt like was so much empathy was she was like, "Oh my god, I could not imagine being in your shoes right now. That you got the worst doctor." So super validating. She's like, like people know he's like a narcissist.
Mm.
Um, and then was sharing. She started sharing her own story, which sometimes can feel like you're taking over the conversation, but in this instance, she really was empathizing. She was like, "I could not imagine after having just given birth, having to fight
Yeah.
for," which we'll share in another
But
thing,
by her
but
saying that, she actually was imagining it.
she was actually imagining it, and
Yeah.
she was giving me like
Yeah.
really deep compassion and empathy. um she was like, "Oh," and kind of took my side. It's almost like, when you're in empathy, you are taking the person's side
You kind of
who's
become an advocate.
you kind of become an advocate. And actually there were two people who did this, and I there were several people who didn't do this in that experience, but there were two people who did this, and it really started with them putting themselves in my shoes. And I remember just like crying because I was like, nobody for the last 2 days has given me any type of empathy. It's all been, they kept walking in saying, "I'm sorry, but this is just this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is our protocol.
Yeah. Sorry this is happening.
Sorry." Do you remember they kept saying, "I'm sorry, this is happening to you"? And then the guy who was actually very narcissistic
But that was it.
came in and was like, "I'm sorry, this is happening to you," right after he did something that was extremely dishonoring and disrespectful. It was like, you're not really sorry.
Yeah.
That's like
You're just doing.
that's actually sympathy,
Yeah. That's
because
the.
it was the underlying judgmental. You're actually lower than me. I don't agree with anything. Like, it was not empathetic at all.
And that's like the socially norm thing to say is
Yeah,
sorry. So
right,
it's like you're supposed to say sorry, but it's not really rooted in any understanding.
right. And you actually said out after he said sorry. He said, I don't know how much you want to share, but we'll probably share a little bit in other episodes. But we right after he did something extremely dishonoring. I mean, like, to the 10th degree dishonoring.
Yeah.
Um, he came in and said like something like, "I'm sorry, I had to do that," or something like that. I'm sorry it had to be done. And you like lost it and you're like, wait, aren't you the one who did that? Like, aren't you the one who instigated that really dishonoring thing?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, yeah, yeah. And you're like, why are you saying sorry? You said that. You're like,
Yeah. No, I just couldn't.
why? You're sorry? You're
Yeah.
sorry? After you just caused X, Y,
Yeah.
and Z, you're sorry?
Yeah, because I
Why
didn't
are you
want.
coming back? It's
Because
pitiful.
in
It was
some ways
pitiful.
it was, yeah, he was giving me sympathy, and I recognized it, and I rejected it because I was
Yeah.
like, I don't need
I don't
your
need your
sympathy.
sympathy. Yeah, right.
What I need is empathy here.
Right. You need to step into our shoes,
Yeah.
understand where we're coming from, and then like act out of that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it'll probably make more sense when we share more of the story, but it can be a very painful thing to experience like sympathy over and over and over again, especially when you are trying to actually be powerful in your life. Sympathy is often the last thing
Yeah.
that people want. It can be experienced as really deep dishonor of one's ability to make choices and
Mm-hmm.
be powerful. And yeah, it was, yeah, we had one other person in that instance who gave really good empathy towards the end, and she was somebody who was totally a godsend. um she came in and she was like, she actually knew us. We didn't know that she worked there, but she knew us and was able to get us out of a situation that was really, really challenging. So it was a really big God story, but she came in with so much empathy. She was like, oh my gosh, like asked me how I was doing. Nobody had asked how I was doing yet. Got me a bunch of things that I needed. Um, you know, basically became an advocate. She kind of was like, I'm going to go advocate for you, because
Yeah.
she stepped enough into the place of understand. Like she really tried so hard to understand where we were at, that she was able to step in, not out of pity, but
Mm-hmm.
out of empathy, and say, what would this person really need right now?
Yeah.
And she was able to like, I mean, really like kind of save the day. Um, so it's a it's a very powerful feeling when you experience true empathy
Yeah.
for people.
It is.
Um, yeah, I wanted to just also touch on like when people are wanting sympathy, they will often sound like they're constantly complaining. So I don't know if you've experienced these people in your life, but it will sound like they're constantly complaining. Sometimes people don't know how to receive empathy, so you could actually try to give it to them, and you could tell it makes them really uncomfortable. I know I've experienced that before when I was like just starting out receiving empathy and compassion from people. I like didn't know how to receive it. um, but often people will kind of stay in this place of continuing to complain about certain things, complain that kind of complain and blame their life and blame their circumstances and blame this and that, and it's warranting this sympathy. And if you try to give empathy sometimes in situations, like it's kind of like you're it gets deflected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think part of it is that they're just not used to getting the need met that way,
Right,
right?
right. It's a
So part of this is you practicing giving empathy, but also you need to practice receiving it.
Mhm.
You know, it's just as important. This isn't about just oh, I need to be giving it more. It's like you also need to be learning how to receive empathy,
Yeah.
and they go together.
Yeah, I've had this desire a lot. I actually want to do I like kind of, I don't know, empathy like worship night over people who are like experiencing pain or like sickness for long periods of time. I want to like kind of step into that place, because I think some people don't even know what it sounds like. Maybe we could try that out right now.
Sure.
Like, um, yeah, I don't know if you've ever heard somebody cry with you too. That's another thing. Like, Has somebody ever cried with you?
Mm,
That's a deep form of empathy.
yeah.
Um, I
Has
don't
someone
know.
cried with you?
I don't know if someone's cried with me, but I've cried with someone one time, and
Yeah.
I was at a church event at that vineyard, and someone had been experiencing really intense pain for a really long time, and she tried what she felt like was everything, and I can't explain it. In that moment, I felt like so heartbroken for her, and she was
Yeah.
just weeping as I was praying for her, and I just started crying. Like I
Yeah.
felt the emotion she was feeling. She felt so hopeless. She
Yeah.
felt so like alone. She felt so like at the end of herself. And I literally was like, if I was in this position, I would feel so sad.
Yeah.
Um,
That happened to me with you. Because what I'm thinking about actually is I think healthy empathy also leads to compassion.
yeah.
Because I actually think there is empathy could also lead to an unhealthy, like you don't want to get consumed with someone else's emotions.
Yes.
Like
That's
you don't want to get like entangled with another person.
hmm
Like that's not the goal of empathy too.
yeah.
Because like putting someone,
Well, I still think that's sympathy. No,
yeah.
it's a sneaky
But it's like
sympathy.
the idea of like putting yourself in their shoes is
Oh,
good, but I think it needs to lead. You're still two separate people, and the best way you can also help them is if that empathy leads to compassion, which compassion is like, like kind of what you're explaining, like it wells up like an understanding, you know, an understanding, but also a realization, an understanding of their pain, but also knowing that they're not stuck there. Things can change. It's not like
yeah. You're
there's
empowered.
hope.
They're empowered.
Yeah,
Yes, their
it's an
hope. Yeah.
understanding of their pain, but there's still hope attached to
hmm
that understanding.
Yeah. Well, I think too, sympathy can be so sneaky in that way because you end up getting these like inadvertent needs met. So the person, it kind of what you might be describing is like a little bit more sympathy because if someone is not able to detach in a healthy way and not able to believe that that person's powerful, then they actually are getting a need met by being sympathetic. Um, the need really is to feel like they're the hero in the
Mm,
story. Like this person couldn't do this without me. I have to stay in this place of being of giving them this emotional need as opposed to like I think true empathy when you step out it allows you to step out of that um, because you're not there for yourself. It's not selfish. You're not going in there getting your need met of I'm the hero. I get to like help you. You're lower than me. Um, yeah, it's truly compassionate. It kind of reminds me of the um, like the story in the Bible of like the Good Samaritan.
mm-hmm.
It's it's truly compassionate instead of really like kind of like looking down on them.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I think it has to be empowering.
me too.
It has to be empowering. Otherwise, it's almost always self-serving to some degree because you don't really you only would want somebody to stay in that place if it benefited you to some degree. And so it's finding
Yeah,
like how do you act in actual selflessness? And that's a deep question, but I don't know. What do you think about doing like a little like practice empathy, kind of show them what it would look
sure.
um, like we could give like a and the thing is that's cool about this is you could actually do this to yourself if you um,
Yeah, it's like self compassion.
yeah self
I actually
compassion
like the word compassion
yeah
because I think empathy should lead to compassion.
Yeah, yeah,
So really, the goal is compassion.
right.
Like healthy empathy springs out compassion for the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, I don't know. So it might mean like picking a person in our head of like who we're who we're thinking of. Do you have any idea you'd want to like, or like a persona? I know like my a lot of my audience is dealing with complex chronic illness
Hmm.
that where they've been really misunderstood by
Yeah.
the
Why don't
medical
you
system.
give empathy, compassion to that person?
Yeah, yeah. Um, the funny thing is, it's usually easy to give. It's easier to give empathy when you've experienced it yourself.
Oh yeah.
So, um, and I haven't fully experienced what some people out there have experienced. So I'm going to just own that right away as like, I'm not, I know plenty of other people who have experienced and probably could even give a deeper level of empathy. Um, but yeah, I guess to the person who has been fighting for their health for so long, maybe even fighting for the health of their family for so long and has not experienced breakthrough, and they've just kept seeking and seeking and seeking help, and maybe they've gotten gaslit by providers over and over and over again. And I'm even seeing people who are not just have been gaslit, but then they've they've actually continued to try over and over again. Maybe it's been their insurance company, maybe it's been um, doctors, maybe it's been friends. Like I see people who have even lost close friends because the friends could not be with them in the midst of their pain, or they didn't
Mm,
understand their pain.
mm,
And so I'm speaking to the person who's um, just feels really alone right now
mm.
and feels really misunderstood by everybody in their life, that it's actually hard to maintain relationships because they're trying to fight for their health, and people don't understand it. Family members maybe don't understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to speak to that person and just say that um, I'm really sorry that you've had to fight for so long and you felt so alone and so gaslit and so humiliated, that it has felt overwhelming to keep going. And um, I can imagine that feeling misunderstood over and over and over again would make it really hard to keep going, make it really hard to want to keep pressing in and having hope for your health. I know people on this channel, I for sure know people on this channel who have just been fighting for over 30 years for their health and are still going. And I just, to that person, I'm like, I have such a deep respect and honor for you because it can be so painful to keep having hope in the midst of feeling like it just keeps
Yeah.
being, you just keep getting disappointed over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I again, like I'm saying, I don't even have a full perspective of what some of that could feel like. Um, but knowing what I know of some of my friends and knowing what I've had, some of my own experiences, I'm really, really sorry that you've been so alone in this and so afraid and not had the support. And I just want to say that's not how it was designed to be. It's not
Yeah.
how it was supposed to be. That's not fair. And you have every right to be upset and angry and to grieve years and years of pain. Um, yeah, and you did the right thing. You actually sought out the help, you sought out the medical care. And for a lot of you, I've just seen and heard stories of being so, um, the word that keeps coming to mind is gaslit. Like, it's just, so discouraged in the midst of being already feeling sick, and probably it's affected mental health. And so yeah, I just want to say that, like, we're here with you. We're with you. We see you.
Yeah.
I see all of your DMs that have shared about different issues. I see the hope that you guys carry, that little spark that you guys continue to have and consistently put forward, even though it can be so hard, when, again, like, you're fighting for so long. So I just want to say that I see you. I see that hope. And yeah, I'm proud of you guys for keep coming back.
Yeah. That's actually what was highlighted to me.
Yeah.
Was like, hey, I see how hard you've worked.
Yeah.
I see all the time you've put in, all of the wrestling with what to do, the questioning, all that kind of stuff. And I'm just proud of you for fighting for yourself, for fighting for your health.
Some of you need to hear that from like a man too.
Yeah.
So it's good for you to hear that from
Yeah.
a father figure.
Mm.
So let Eric, like, speak to that for a second.
Yeah, those are the two things that I feel highlighted to me are you're seen and you're loved and you matter, and I'm proud of you. Even in the midst of something that is so difficult, that can feel like out of control, that can feel scary, all those things, the truth of you is that you are a fighter, is that you are worth health, you're worth it, and um, and that you matter.
Yeah.
So I want to speak that life over you as well, even in the midst of something that can feel so painful.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, that I can think of.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for watching. We want to be this space of vulnerable, empathetic empowerment. That's my whole goal here at Wholeness Campaign, is to see people free and see people regain their health. But we want to attend to the heart needs as well. So if you got any value out of this, please like and subscribe to my channel. It's my passion to walk alongside people as they heal and grow. It inspires me and hopefully brings encouragement to you. Thanks for watching. Peace out.